All right. Hello, everyone. Blitzball Champ is back with a brand new video. I want to take this time to talk more Final Fantasy VII. And I came across some information, two articles that really caught my attention, and I really wanted to give my thoughts on them. So they're both from Game Rant. Um, One of them's named Final Fantasy VII Remake, 5 scenes from the PS1 classic we can't wait to see in the next game, and 5 we hope they change. And the other one is called the Final Fantasy VII Remake on PS4, 10 unanswered questions we want resolved with DLC. And I'll be sure to link both of these articles in the description box, so definitely check that out. But I kind of wanted to go through this and give my thoughts on it because I looked at it earlier and there's some things that really caught my attention and uh, felt like why not jump into it. So let's get started. So with the first article, we're talking 5 scenes from the PS1 classic Final Fantasy VII that we can't wait to see in the next installment of the Final Fantasy VII Remake, and 5 things that we hope change or hope that they take out that was in the original. So let's jump right on into this. So oh, fair warning, if you haven't played the original or the remake, spoiler alerts in this video. So if you haven't played either of them, you may want to stop right here and go play them. You should have played them and beaten them by now. It's ridiculous. It's May. No, I'm just joking. Anyway, let's get started. So the first can't wait is the flashback. What am I talking about? It's the flashback story of Cloud that's told at Calm once you leave Midgar. Um, I'll read the description. It says, without even letting players know what is going on, the game should open the flashback with the flashback that Cloud explains in Calm, which is only the town that's not far from Midgar. It should then finish with the game opening up with Cloud sitting with his friends at the end. It would be a great way to tell the story along with having a tutorial section. Being able to see Sephiroth in a more human-like form along with excitable rookie form of Cloud will get the fans excited for sure. This I definitely can agree with, considering how the first part of the remake ended. This definitely makes sense to pick up right where it leaves off and really get the flashback story from Cloud at the town of Calm. So I definitely agree with this one. I think it would be a good way to start the second part of the Final Fantasy VII remake. And tutorial would be nice as well, just to kind of get a good refresher of the gameplay, plus any new features they decide to do. And it would be good to kind of have that shown through being able to do battles with Cloud and Sephiroth, since that's where the flashback really focuses on. So I definitely agree with this one. Definitely agree. Now the first thing that they listed that should change, they should take out, is the Midgar Zolom, the big giant cobra that's in the swamp. As That's across from the Chocobo Ranch that you got to go through to get to the Mithril Cave. Um, Anyway, it says, after Calm, there's a lot of fat that can be trimmed from the PS1 original. After this area, players had to get a chocobo from the ranch in order to run past the Midgar Zone, which is true, because if you there's no way you can outrun it normally. It'll always catch you, and you always got to fight it. And at that time in the game, it's a very strong monster, so you can easily be defeated. You may last a bit in the battle, but usually when the Midgar stands up and starts shaking, it attacks more frequently, and it'll unleash the beta um, enemy skill that you can learn. It can also knock away members of your party. Anyway, continuing. Um, Not seeing Sephiroth in the flesh at this point, only to see his handiwork demolish one of these giant snakes, was a sight to behold. This is in regards to him impaling a Midger Zalem on a big, gigantic wooden spike. His power is that great, it builds up tension. Since Sephiroth was in the other game, that stuff doesn't need to be in it anymore. His power is now well known for this sequel. That's that's a fair argument. That's a fair argument. Mainly because, in the first part of the remake, you actually get to fight Sephiroth. Which in the original, you don't get to fight Sephiroth until the end of the game. So this is a fair argument. This is a fair argument. Now, as far as whether the Midger Zalem should be there or not, I mean, who knows? Maybe they'll redo it as a boss fight. They may redo it as a boss fight, um as a required boss fight. Maybe that's a possibility. I mean, you never know. But this is a fair argument. This is definitely a fair argument. Next, can't wait, is the Junon parade at the Junon Harbor. Cloud getting roped into marching in a Shinra parade in Junon is right up there with the cross-dressing as a standout, funny moment, since that stuff was so well handled in the first part of this remake. The inclusion for this scene in this sequel is sure to be comical, although nothing can really top that dance sequence at the Honeybee Inn. Good point. But Square Enix can certainly try. I can definitely see them doing sort of a mini game with how they do the marching in the parade, and of course doing the drill team sequence as well, doing the different commands, following the drill instructor. So I definitely see that as being a more in-depth mini game in the remake. So yeah, I can agree with this. I can definitely agree with this. Although the Honeybee Inn dance sequence, I have to say, was weird, but it was kind of entertaining. But I could see them doing a mini game out of this segment from the original. So yeah, think that'll be good. Think that'll be really good. The next please change that they have in this article is please change Fort Condor. And the description says Fort Condor is another area after Calm that hopefully gets left out. The original game had some great mini games, but it perhaps also has too many. Having to periodically go back here to participate in an RTS battle was never exactly fun. Of course, one could just pay the folks at the reactor to defend it themselves. The point is, even with the later reward of Phoenix, it always felt like filler. Me personally, I had no problem with the Fort Condor battles. I mean, they were kind of easy. Because when you think about it, all you're doing is, you see what enemies are deployed into the battlefield. All you got to do is place the right units that, are strong against those particular enemy units, and pretty much you're straight. I mean, it was pretty much that easy. Once you knew the strengths and weaknesses of your allies and of the enemies, all you had to do was just place the right people at the right spots. You have your catapults, your different defenses, and and that was it. Uh, it does make me wonder if this is something that they just decide to leave the whole place out. But I mean, I had no problem with Fort Condor. Even if they decide to not do the real time strategy mini game that they did in the original, they should at least have Fort Condor there. I think that's fair that it should at least have the location. So this also is a fair argument, but I think it should at least keep the landmark though. Next up, can't wait, the Junon ship. Oh yes. And the description says this could have been combined with the parade, but as it is technically not part of the city of Junon, it will be counted as a separate entry. The most notable part of this ship in the original game is that players are not only had their first encounter with Sephiroth, but they also fight the first form of Genova. Yes, all accurate. Um, the Junin ship. Oh, there's more. I'm sorry, I forgot to scroll down. It says that probably won't happen on the boat this time. Instead, what fans really want to see is everyone in their sailor outfits, especially Barrett and Red 13. Yeah, because you had to dress up as sailors to disguise yourself to get on the Junin ship. But yeah, this is all true. Originally, this was where you fought Genova for the first time, but in the remake, you fight her in the remake. You fight a version of her in the remake. Um, it'll be interesting to see what they do with this sequence. Maybe a boss fight with Genova, just different from how it was in the original, or maybe a fight with Sephiroth. I don't know. I definitely don't expect this to be the same as it was before for obvious reasons. But it'll be interesting to see how they do this. It really will. The next one is a please change. Please change Yuffie's entrance. The description says, as was mentioned in another article on where the sequel or sequels could go next, it is hoped that both Yuffie and Vincent are saved for a later entry. Encountering her outside of Junin as an optional character never made Yuffie feel like a unique experience. Maybe she can be in this game as a cameo, but hopefully her grand playable entrance is saved for, let's say, Wu Tai. Um, here's the problem that I have with that. You don't really get a chance to go to Wu Tai until until after you get the tiny Bronco in the original. So I mean, I don't know. It kind of takes a while before you get the tiny Bronco to get to Wu Tai. So I don't know how I feel about saving that for that point. Um, a cameo appearance I could understand. Maybe not have her appear the same way you would in the original, but I mean a cameo appearance makes sense. Maybe a couple of cameo appearances where she kind of is in the background, or the party doesn't ever notice her, and there's like a few scenes with her. Could have a voice part and everything like that. They just don't know she's there. And then, maybe they could do it that way for a bit, but I don't know. Saving her an appearance until you make way to Wu Tai, I think that's too far. I think that's definitely too far. So I don't know. That's an interesting one, but I can see what they're getting at. I can definitely see what they're getting at. And besides, I'm pretty sure Yuffie and Vincent in the remake won't be optional characters. At least I don't think they should be. I think they're important to have and shouldn't really be optional. But we'll see. Next up, can't wait. Oh, this I really like. Can't wait for the gold saucer. Yes. The description says there are too many scenes in the gold saucer to choose just one. The very idea of going to a colorful place like that in full PS5 quality, which is a good point because this next installment could be a PS5 game, is a bit hard to handle. From meeting up with Cat Sith for the first time to the Chocobo races, the place is going to be off the hook. Prepare for a minigame explosion. Hopefully, an alternate version of Jesse will be there acting. I definitely agree that whatever installment has full access to the gold saucer will definitely probably be the hotspot for all the mini games in that installment. This makes the most sense. I really look forward to the design of the gold saucer. I think that'll end up being a treat for everybody that plays this game, everybody that's played the original. I really think this is going to be such a treat. I'm very much looking forward to this. So I really hope they go all out and get really creative. I mean, they did pretty well with how they did the wall market in the remake. I will say that they did a good job with the wall market. But with the gold saucer, you gotta take it up a couple of more notches. Like, just you gotta blow people away. And this is a great opportunity to do that with the gold saucer in the next installment of the remake. So I really hope they go all that with the overall look, the loads of mini games, and just like knock it out of the ballpark. Uh, the next, please change Coral Prison. Let me explain by reading the description. One thing about the Gold Saucer arc that did not fly was Coral Prison. This ties into Barrett's backstory, which is important. The backstory involving dying. That said, it all felt a little rushed and not fully fleshed out. It was like too many plot points were jammed into one area. Keep North Corel, but take out the prison. Um, which, that's where Barrett is originally from. Um, take out the prison completely? I mean, they're gonna have to get really creative with that. If they're gonna take the prison out completely, they're gonna have to find a different way to kind of showcase the backstory between Barrett, Marlene, and Dine. They're gonna have to figure out a way of doing that. So it'll really be interesting to see what they decide to do, because I mean you pretty much go to the Coral Prison straight from Gold Saucer, but it'll be interesting how they do that. They really got to figure out a way. If they do remove that, they got to figure out a good way of really telling that story. Either by when you first get to North Corel, before you get to board the whatever the vehicle's name to get to the Gold Saucer, but yeah, they got to figure that out. They got to figure it out. But I am curious to see what they do. But this is an interesting request, I think. Okay. The last can't wait is Cosmo Canyon. The description says meeting up with Bugenhagen or Bugenhagen. I don't know how you say that. We'll find out in the remake. Um, might just be the climax of the game. Him explaining what's going on with the different realities only to be interrupted by a disturbance in the caves would make for a great finale. Square Enix could easily put Sephiroth, a clone, or Genova down in there to tie everything in with Red 13, while it would be nice to venture off to Nibelheim next. Looking off into the distance at Cloud's hometown would be a good cliffhanger. I have mixed feelings about this. Only because, well, I guess depending on what you do, I guess it, you know, doesn't take too long to get to Cosmo Canyon from Calm, just from the starting point there. But I don't know, like a cliff ending on a cliffhanger like that would be interesting. Finishing off that installment uh, at Cosmo Canyon, that would be interesting. I don't think I'd put it past them to do that. I don't know. Just going by from what I remember, I just don't remember it taking that long to get to Cosmo Canyon. So, yeah, that'll be interesting. But with that being the place that you go to before Nibelheim, because you're pretty much stuck and have to go to Cosmo Canyon because that's where your Doom buggy breaks down. So it'll be interesting to see if they do that sort of similar. But I could I could see this making sense. I could definitely see this making sense. But I don't know. It also depends on the content that they put in this installment. Because I mean, they did do a pretty good job with the remake, the first installment, with just how they kind of expanded on Midgar, since pretty much the whole game took place there. So it'll be interesting to see how they do this. But I am curious, though. Definitely curious. And then the final please change is please change Gungaga, as in Gungaga Village, which is close to Cosmo Canyon as well. The description says, like Fort Condor, Gungaga is an optional area. It is here where players can square off with the Turks and find out a little bit about Zack and get some materia. As this was optional, it never fit in properly with the story. This is all to say this area is not needed and it could easily be merged with some other place. That's pretty much true. I mean, the only time that you really end up in Gungaga Village was after the events of the Temple of the Ancients, and before you make way to Bone Village and then to the City of the Ancients, which pretty much gets right to the end of Disc 1 in the original. But yes, this was optional place where you could fight the Turks and get some materia as well. And there's also the village. Removing it altogether, it might not be a bad idea, but I mean, I don't know. They could always not make it an optional area. You never know. You never know. But I mean, just like in the original, it's not a place that you really have to go to intentionally, but I mean, I get it. I definitely get it. But that's it for that article. Like I said, definitely check that one out and give me your thoughts on that. Now, for the second article, Final Fantasy Remake 10 unanswered questions that we want resolved with DLC. So let's go ahead and jump right into this one. First off, we got the forming of Avalanche. This is actually a good point. Let me read the description. As Tifa said, she was in Midgar for 5 years. How long was Avalanche around? That was one aspect that the remake sort of touched on. Mayor Domino, for example, was shown to be working with them. On top of that, Barrett's group is a faction that branched off the main group that was first shown storming the Shinra Supply Depot during Jesse's mission. Some DLC exploring how the organization was formed would be interesting. That is actually a really, really good point. Because, I mean, the most you really got, in the original was the backstory with Dyne and Marlene. But it would actually be, because, that also explains and shows how he lost his arm and then got the gun arm crafted. I think that'd be cool. That kind of tying in to him getting the gun arm and how Avalanche was formed. I think that would be really good. That's not really something the original ever hit on. So I think this would be cool. How did Biggs, Wedge, and Jesse get recruited? You know what I mean? I think this would be good. I actually think this would be good. A nice side story that could use its own piece of DLC. I think that'd be cool. I think that'd be cool. I am in full support of this. Next up, Cloud's Journey. Let me read. It says, in the original story, Cloud and Zack were captured and experimented on following the death of Sephiroth. This is true. After a few years, Zack broke them out and made it to Midgar, only to be slain. This woke Cloud's conscience, along with warping it to take on the role of his friend. Cloud doesn't just go from the cliff to Midgar to Avalanche, right? He must have had some missions or work in between the end of Crisis Core and the bombing mission. That could be cool to see. So you kind of get a little glimpse of that. If you return to the basement in Nibelheim later in the game, I think it's like I think you have to be in the third disc if I remember correctly. But if you return there way later in the game, you get to get a special clip flashback to with that involved Cloud and Zack. So yeah, I think this would be good to expand upon because you know one can assume a lot happened between Cloud going forward after Zack being slain to the point of the bombing mission of how he got recruited for the mission, how he learned about Avalanche. You know what I'm saying? Because I mean, at that time, that's where he really started taking on being a mercenary for hire. So I think it would be really good to expand upon this, and hey, it'd be nice to see some gameplay involving both Cloud and Zack Fair. So I could definitely dig that. I think it would be good to kind of fill in those holes that weren't really expounded on in the original. There were a little bit, but and I'm sure most people would understand, like after playing Crisis Core, which was a PSP game. But this is definitely interesting, definitely really interesting, and I hope that they would expand upon that. But this is a good point. It's a really good point. Next, Zack's journey, Zack Fair. Description says, speaking of Zack, while he did receive his own game to shine in Crisis Core, as I said, PSP, the end of the remake brings up an interesting question. In the new timeline, the world the group ventured into and destroyed Sephiroth, Zack was shown alive and well. That's true. This was at the ending. Not only that, but Cloud was there too. Could a DLC featuring Zack that goes through the original game's events be an option? That sounds crazy, but after the remake's end, anything is possible. Hmm. This would be interesting, but well, actually, I could see it being a huge story DLC that would probably cover a good amount of hours when you think about it. So this might not be a bad idea. Might not be a bad idea at all. It'll be interesting to how they kind of break it down if they were to do this, but it's not a bad idea. I can definitely I would dig this. I would definitely dig this because the way the remake ended, it does kind of make sense because you do see Zack in that ending. So yeah, we'll just have to see. Next up, the Whispers and Aerith. The description says Aerith's presence also opens up some questions. She seemingly knows events that already occurred in another timeline, aka the original game. Either that or she can see where fate is guiding them. When did this happen? When did she first encounter Whispers and or learn how to fight? Some DLC focusing on her relationship with those things, along with the Turks in Sector 6, could provide insightful. Could prove insightful, I'm sorry. Maybe she is not even from the remake's timeline. I mean, aside from what was really shared through the flashback once Aerith got captured by the Turks, what was kind of explained by Elmira, just about how she met Aerith and her husband who served in the war at Wutai and how her husband got killed and the last moments of Ifalna. So I mean, but yeah, we really don't know how Aerith could fight. We there's a lot that could be expounded upon, just a lot more of her background as an ancient. So and really we got to see the whispers. This was kind of a new thing in the remake. So it raises a lot of questions, especially with why these whispers were really kind of thrown into the mix. So yeah, this is interesting, but I'm sure we're gonna get the chance to see a lot of this covered, hopefully, before Aerith's death, before we bear witness to that again. So, which I feel like we have a ways to go, because I'm getting the idea that we probably, in this next installment of the remake, probably won't have the part where Aerith dies just yet, but you never know. You never know. Next up, this is an interesting one as well. How was Red 13 captured? The description says another issue never explained in the original game was how Red 13 got caught. This is true. For that matter, how long was Red 13 held captive, and what exactly did Hojo do to him? Since he wasn't playable in the remake, this would be a perfect opportunity to have Red 13 star in his own mini episode. It might be too much to hope Cosmo Canyon would be included, but one never knows. I think this is a perfect idea to have some DLC that showcases Red 13, because this is true. We have no idea how Red 13 got captured and taken to Shinra headquarters. We have no idea like what Hojo did to him. There's a lot of just unknown of Red 13 before you met Red 13. So I think this would be a great opportunity to really explain that. So I really hope this is something that they consider and really expand on, because it really makes sense. It makes sense to do. So I agree. I highly agree. Next, Cat Sith Misadventures. The description says the appearance of Cat Sith was maybe one of the more surprising cameos in the game. Definitely not one I expected. In the original Final Fantasy VII, he was never seen until the party made it to the Gold Saucer. This is true. Of course, Sephiroth was also not seen until much later in the campaign. But that's not the point. Even though Cat Sith doesn't say anything, his appearance suggests that he will have some role in DLC. Maybe he can be combined with Red 13 as the two are paired up in Advent Children. This is true. In Advent Children, Cat Sith didn't have his big robot Mog body. Cat Sith rode on top of Red 13, just in the little bitty cat form. So actually a really good point. That's a really good point. But yeah, did make the surprise cameo appearance in the remake, which I thought it was really interesting. Which, I mean, we all know that played the original know that Cat Sith is Reeve from Shinra headquarters. But it would be kind of nice to see how the whole idea was formed. And then, I mean, because you really, of course, don't see a lot of his usefulness until the Temple of the Ancients, when he sacrifices himself with the destruction of the Temple of the Ancients. But of course, just another Cat Sith fills in, and then same thing. But yeah, you got a glimpse of Cat Sith before reaching the Gold Saucer in this remake. So this will be interesting. This will definitely be interesting. So yeah, I look forward to that. I really do. All right, next up, Sephiroth and the Reunion clones. The description says, some things are better left off as a mystery, but one can't help but wonder what the biggest bad of them all was up to. Will Sephiroth at some point be playable in this remake's new universe? Explaining how Sephiroth got to this timeline and how he is controlling the two Reunion clones, 42 and 2, could be eye-opening. Admittedly, that seems like some late level final game kind of stuff, though. Still, it would be cool to touch upon these questions in the DLC. Um, Perhaps, but I don't know. Me personally, I don't see much Sephiroth gameplay happening outside of what I discussed earlier about the calm flashback. But I don't know. DLC dedicated to Sephiroth wouldn't be terrible. I just don't know. I mean, is there a point to it? And I could be wrong. I could be wrong, but I would not complain about Sephiroth dedicated DLC. Of course, I'm not going to complain about that. Are you kidding me? But I mean, I don't know. I can't really see this one happening, but I could be wrong. I could be wrong. All right, number three, or we still got three more left. The Shinra badges. The description says the most likely hint at DLC is shown in the Shinra Museum. At the beginning of the tour, the party witnesses a preview video showcasing the department directors. Two of them, Reeve and Heidegger, looked like they had games. Reeve has hearts hovering above the citizens of Midgar, perhaps pointing to a Sims-style adventure. Heidegger's troops had green, highlighted squares below their feet reminiscent of tactical RPGs. DLC, phone tie-ins, or none of the above? Uh, I did think the Shinra Museum that they threw into the remake was actually pretty cool. Just explaining the different departments of Shinra. Um, it was pretty neat. It was actually pretty neat. So, I mean, I guess this is a way that they can expand upon that with its own DLC. But I did think that was really a nice, cool addition that they did in the remake with the Shinra Museum and the Shinra headquarters. I think that was really cool. So, who knows? Maybe they'll expand upon that. Would be interesting. All right, next, more Shinra stuff. The description says there are a few questions regarding some other Shinra items. What happened to Roche? Players fought him once during Jesse's mission, and that was it. As he didn't die, he should be around. Where was Rufus the entire game, and what was his group, the Turks, up to? DLC that explores the bad guys would be a nice twist. After all, the West never got to enjoy Final Fantasy VII's phone prequel before Crisis. Now is the time for a Turks celebration. You know what? I would totally be down for some backstory on the Turks. Oh, I would so be down for that. You know, because I mean, you had Reno, Rude, you had Elena, um, I guess you had Sang, but like, I would be all for that. And and just like in the original, you really didn't see Rufus until near the end of the Shinra headquarters raid. But I definitely agree with this. And then Roche, new character they threw in the remake. When do we see him again? We had the one encounter with him during Jesse's mission. So I have no doubt we'll see him again. They've got to throw him back in. They really do. Whether it's DLC or the next installment, they have to throw him back in. So that I feel like it's safe to expect. And then, Rufus, the Turks, yeah, definitely Rufus would be nice to kind of expand upon. But the Turks, I would be all over for sure. I'm a big fan of the Turks, so it would really be special for me. And then finally, this one says Final Fantasy One. The description says, "What's more unlikely, getting to play as Sephiroth at some point in the remake, or Square Enix making a literal Origins prequel of this world? The party is taken through a simulation of the Ancients era, complete with old school airships at the end of their tour. Remaking the original Final Fantasy, but as a tie-in to this universe, would be crazy and not really suitable for DLC. As the preview was in the game, well, one can't help but be excited at the prospect, therefore, it has to be included. I don't see it happening. I really don't. I mean, I guess it would be nice, but I can't see it as DLC. I think it would have to be like a spin off or its own thing. I really don't see this as DLC. And, I'm not too big of a fan of the idea, but I mean, I guess. I mean, you can never go wrong. You can never go wrong with more content. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. I'm not really feeling this one. But you can't go wrong with more content. So, I can respect that. But yeah, so that's it. That's all that I have for these two articles. Like I said, I'll put these in the description box so that you can follow along. But definitely check them out and let me know what your thoughts are. Like, what would you like to see in the next installment of the Final Fantasy VII Remake? If DLC is on the way, what kind of DLC would you like? Does it line up with these articles, or do you want to see something different? You want to see something fresh, different? Um, Let me know what your thoughts in the comment section, and yeah, that's all. Thank y'all so much for watching. This is Blitzball Champ signing off. Everybody have a blessed week, and I'll see y'all soon. Peace.